Labour announced their new immigration policy today. How long did it take Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood to mention that her parents were immigrants?
If I am honest, it is an honour I never expected, and it is one that would have been unthinkable to my parents when they first arrived here in the 1970s.
Seconds. It took her seconds. How long before she brought up the far right?
On the 13th of September, 150,000 people marched through London. They did so under the banner of a convicted criminal and a former BNP member. While not everyone was violent, some were.
She actually went even further than that.
It would be easy to dismiss this as nothing but an angry minority, heirs to the skinheads and the bashers of old. And make no mistake, some were. But to dismiss what happened that day would be to ignore something bigger, something broader that is happening across this country.
Gosh, wow. Do you remember that time when people published a fake list of locations that the far right were going to turn up at? Then a load of Asian lads in Birmingham gathered on a roundabout to see them off and then threatened a journalist before later some others kicked a bloke's head in at a pub. I do.
Community leaders have been speaking to the police as well because...
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
But I think, apologies for the language you're hearing, but a sense of the anger, I think you can hear there.
Yeah, Katie, I think Becky...
Yeah. Would Shabana Mahmood go the whole hog, though, and mention the Islamist jihadi terror attacks on 7/7, but make it all about how it felt to be a Muslim in Britain at the time?
I know what it feels like to be a Muslim in this country in the wake of the devastating terror attacks of 9/11 and 7/7.
Bingo. Yes, she did. I mean, we might have a legal and illegal immigration crisis on our hands, but Labour's Home Secretary wants you to know how open, tolerant and generous she is.
Open, tolerant, generous place can be open, tolerant and generous. An open, tolerant and generous country. Open, tolerant, generous country. Open, tolerant, generous country. An open, tolerant, generous country.
That's real. She said it that many times. We have just let the nephew of a Taliban commander seek asylum in Britain and bring 7 relatives over, none of whom speak a word of English, who will almost definitely spend the rest of their lives living on benefits. Is that the kind of openness, generosity and tolerance that she's talking about? But here is the centrepiece of her speech. Reform said that they would crack down on indefinite leave to remain. They said that people would have to reapply. They would have to earn a certain amount of money, not claim benefits, not commit a crime. We all know what the Prime Minister thinks of that policy.
It is a completely different thing to say we are going to reach in to people who are lawfully here and start removing them. They are our neighbours.
That proposal is immoral, to deport people who are already here if they don't pass more stringent rules. Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think that it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
Oh, we all know what former Foreign Secretary, mastermind contestant and now Justice Secretary David Lammy thinks of it.
He must call his scheme to round up and deport our French, our Indian, our Caribbean neighbours who already have indefinite leave to remain what it is. It is racist. I say not in our country, not in our name, not in our time.
So here we go, Shabana Mahmood, give us your plan.
For that reason, we will soon increase the time in which someone must have lived in this country to earn indefinite leave to remain from 5 years to 10. and we will be consulting on this change soon, and as part of that consultation, I will be proposing a series of new tests, such as being in work, making national insurance contributions, not taking a penny in benefits, learning English to a high standard, having no criminal record, and finally, that you have truly given back to your community, such as by volunteering your time to a local cause.
Hang on a minute. That's very similar to Reform's plan, isn't it? What's the catch?
Without meeting these conditions, I do not believe your ability to stay in this country should be automatic. Some will be able to earn an earlier settlement than 10 years based on their contribution, while others will be forced to wait longer if they are not contributing enough. In some cases, they will be barred from indefinite leave to remain entirely.
Oh, right, I see. So the catch is that if foreigners don't meet Labour's criteria, then they might still let them stay anyway. Brilliant. And they're not going to do anything about the people who've already been given indefinite leave to remain, took a council house and benefits and used this country as a free hotel. No, they're not deporting them. You lot can stay. After all that, Shabana Mahmood had the brass neck to say this.
Some may describe me in the coming months as a tough Home Secretary. Perhaps that is true.
It's not true. Nobody will ever say that. Right, let's get the views of my panel. We have got with us Poppy Coburn from The Telegraph, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Butterworth, and Reform UK Sir Jake Berry. So, yeah, Poppy, I mean, as far as I can tell, Labour's flagship immigration plan is the same as Reform's, but won't deport anybody who is already here taking the absolute mick on indefinite leave to remain.
Yeah, this is a real masterclass from the Labour Party, right? So first we had Keir Starmer with the Island of Strangers speech. Oh, well, he gave that, and sorry, that was actually racist. I disavow that, that's wrong. Now, Reform, Nigel Farage, he's flirting with racism, he's flirting with extremism. Oh, but our policy is kind of like yours, but doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the catch, isn't it? No, sorry, that's the catch. They've made it not racist by making it not work
at all.
Yeah.
Which is great, and that's apparently what passes to be a tough Home Secretary. I'm sorry, we're laughing, but this is the person that people at Labour are holding up as, like, the future of the party.
Potential leader.
A potential leader for the party. She's supposed to be the right of the Labour Party. You know, I know she's only been in the job for a couple of weeks, but this is a real masterclass. She's being undermined by her Prime Minister, and then she actually undermines herself.
She's basically being called racist by the Prime Minister. This is really an odd thing to say.
If I were Nigel Farage right now, I'd be sitting there rubbing my fingers together in glee, being like, God, these people are stupid.
I'm sorry, I don't want a Home Secretary who feels that she has to tell us what an open, generous and tolerant society we have to be.
We are open.
6 or 7 times.
We've got open borders, and if you come here, we give you a free hotel, a mobile phone and access to the NHS. We are open and generous. I just don't think people want to tolerate it anymore, which is maybe time for them to ship out. On this point of indefinite leave to remain, I think there's a fundamental point to why it's really important that Nigel Farage and Reform, and apparently now the Home Secretary, want to tackle this. Why? Because someone comes to this country to work on a work visa, maybe 3, 4 or 5 years, should that in most cases entitle them to live in the United Kingdom for the rest of their natural life, claim benefits, use the NHS, get an old age pension and be able to bring an unlimited number of dependents into the UK. It is completely wrong. Nigel Farage said it wrong. Now appears the Labour Party said it wrong. But the challenge is, because the Labour Party isn't prepared to be tough enough to take the next step and say we're going to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, even if they decide that someone's a terrible criminal and a rapist and part of the Pakistani rape gangs or whatever it is, they won't be able to deport them anyway. This is just, you know, this is just a lie that this is going to alter anything.
Benjamin, the British public don't just want it to stop and not get any worse. They want us to get rid of the people who are already here, who are taking the mick. The people who we gave indefinite leave to remain to, who've just signed on to benefits, got a council house, brought their family over, are not working. Or they want us to get rid of those people. And Labour have said that they are not going to do that.
Well, it's totally misrepresenting the benefits of immigration. The vast majority of people who move here as working-age average adults, they get jobs, they pay taxes. If they're younger, which most of them are, they don't have health issues, and they contribute far more than they take out. And we would be undermining that structure. There are lots of people. In London, for example, there are many people in very high tax-paying jobs that come from other countries.
Sorry, on that, that's really important, because they'd all still be allowed to come, wouldn't they?
Correct.
It's just everyone else we don't.
And half of the 3.4 million people who came in under the so-called Boris wave are out of work.
And by the way,
so to say the majority of people are contributing is nonsense. They're sat on benefits doing nothing, fleecing the British taxpayer. They are out of work, Ben.
Is that not true, that all of those people that you speak about that are a benefit would still be allowed to come? It's just the dossers that we don't want.
Well, there's several things here. First of all, you're going to have people that don't want to build their business, to build their constructive life in this country, because you would have the threat of Farage changing the rules at any given moment. That is not a respectable way for Britain to behave. That's not who we are with a rule of law.
Are we not allowed to change laws, ever? Are we just going to have to stop Parliament give up and now live with this?
The idea you've got, and I think Farage has really got this
I don't
wrong.
want my taxes to go up.
The idea that you've got
Can we not change that law?
who has been working here, contributing for 40 years, who's had their family here, the idea that at 60 they would get sick with cancer or something and we kick them out, that is not a decent way for this country to behave.
But they can become a British citizen.
But these people, well, you wouldn't be able to do that in the time frame, I suspect. And many
you've
of
had
the people,
60 years and you haven't had the opportunity to do it.
Hang on. You know many of these people chose indefinite leave to remain because they didn't require citizenship.
So they want all the benefits of being in Britain, but don't want to be a citizen.
And secondly, if you're a citizen of some other countries, you can't be a dual citizen.
Reform are not yet a government. The reason why they came out with this policy on indefinite leave to remain is fair notice when we do form a government.
A threat.
A threat.
A threat to hard-working, decent people.
Listen, when Rachel Reeves goes on stage and says that we've got a £30 billion black hole, that's a threat. It's also policy-making.
And also
You're allowed
a lie.
to change policies. This is the #1 issue of concern for British voters. It's immigration. It's not just illegal immigration, it's legal immigration.
Do you think...
Boris Johnson himself has admitted that he was mistaken somewhat in allowing what we now call the Boris ways of immigration. Do we have to be stuck with that problem forever? Or can we admit...
It's not a problem, it's an asset. These people come here and fuel our economy. Do you know one of the reasons why Britain is still projected to be the 5th or 6th largest economy by the middle of this century? It's because of the influx of working-age people against the number of pensioners we have. If we take away those working-age migrants, the economy will collapse.
Shabana Mahmood is turning us into the food bank for the world.
Can I say, what does it say...
Mate, you were the person in government when all those people you're talking about came in.
What does it say? What does it say about who the Labour Party is desperate to appeal to? That the Home Secretary was supposed to be doing a speech about a flagship new immigration policy. She feels the need to start off by talking about the fact that her parents are immigrants. She feels the need to say how open, tolerant and generous she is about 6 times. She feels the need to tee off about the far right before she can get to anything to do with, but we're going to make it a little bit tricky for you to come to Britain. This is the state of mind of the people in that Labour audience, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, having spoken to some of these people, you know, when I was at conference, the main takeaway I got from a conversation with them, and again, this was in relation to Keir Starmer's interview where he said about Nigel Farage that the ILR changes were racist. They repeated the same language. They said changing ILR is the sort of thing that the National Front would do. You know, it was like this is racist. This is over the top. This is extreme.
Well, let's talk about that. So just quickly. So Sir Keir Starmer led now, and this is a really significant moment. Watch out for more of this. So Labour's attack line now on reform is that they are racist. So Starmer said it. David Lammy said it. Shabana Mahmood kind of alluded to it a little bit. We've also had Bridget Phillipson who came out and said it today. There's probably been a few others, all right, but that's the point. So now Labour's attack line on reform is basically, Jake, you're racist.
So there's 2 things I think important about this. First of all, just to pick up on a personal story, I actually support that. I do think it's inspiring to see how someone can be the daughter of immigrants and become Home Secretary. That's the sort of Britain we want to live in. But, you know, it's about them coming here, getting British citizenship, contributing to society, and hopefully others will become the Home Secretary. Look, it is impossible. We've had this from the Labour Party. They basically branded anyone who supports reform as far right, deeply offensive. And if you say that reform is racist, it is impossible to support a racist party, as Labour wants us to believe it's untrue, without being a racist yourself. This is not a recipe for electoral success. Basically calling, you know, a third of the British electorate racist ain't going to encourage them to vote Labour care.
It's the oldest trick in the book, isn't it? And it's been tried time and time again, which is they want to try to discourage basically Middle England from voting for reform by trying to smear everyone who does so as a racist.
Yeah.
But anyway,
people won't fall for it.
Well, we'll wait to see. Now, regarding the case I mentioned involving a Taliban commander's nephew, the Home Office is lodging an appeal on the grounds that providing for the family would put too much of a high strain on the public purse. They've said, we've recently moved to suspend the refugee family reunion route, acknowledging the pressures it is putting on local authorities and public services. Well, fine, but he's been allowed to do it.
Well, he shouldn't have been allowed in, let alone the family. No. Don't let him in, and then the problem goes away.
But it's worth noting that this guy was threatened repeatedly by the uncle who was in the Taliban.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Well, like all those Taliban immigrants who are allowed in and then go back on a holiday to Afghanistan for a month at a time.
I mean, look, the doctor concluded that he had PTSD, and there were lots of assessments which found this. I think someone that was being threatened with being killed by their uncle.
If he was, yeah, fair enough.
Look, one of us has met the Taliban, and, you know, they're pretty bad people.
Yeah, well, they are, but, you know, whether or not this guy has. But anyway,